Welcome gamers, Sam here. This bit, I will be your narrator, and as such, my purpose is to entertain you. So brevity and glossing over some facts will happen for the sake of pacing. If you wish to learn the details and intricacies of the lore of Warhammer, there are many book references as well as other YouTube videos that go way more into detail. And with that out of the way, let's get right into it. The world of Warhammer is a vast, encompassing story featuring millions of years of history. Wars of attrition, religious fervor, paranoia, intolerance, these, and more are the recipe for a complex and dim story of the plight of man as they fervently clutch at the dying embers of an empire that is going out slowly, and its tales of its valiant people who feed just a bit more wood to its embers to keep it from dying just a little bit longer. As with any tale, there is always a beginning, and in this tale, man has not always been the center of attention. It is a story that is still being written as we speak, and has not yet reached its ending. And so, we begin from the beginning. Records speak of an ancient race of reptilians, possessed of advanced technology, able to harness and alter the very building blocks of life by changing the genetic structure of all biological matter, and even create brand new organisms with it. Such was their might that their empire dominated most of the galaxy for 60 million Terran years. Their race was so advanced that they created the Webway, a series of labyrinthian corridors separate from our reality, which use energy from the Immaterium or Sea of Souls, a tranquil realm during their time. They used these to travel vast distances in the blink of an eye, transporting people, goods, resources, and more wherever it was needed. Their physiology gave them powerful psychers who were able to use their abilities to run these corridors without fear. Thus, it allowed the Old Ones to travel vast distances and connect billions of planets to their empire. Their purpose was their own, but they used these technologies and abilities to spread their progeny wherever they went. Using their technological superiority and advanced work in genetics, they proceeded to seed planets with the genetic blocks of life, terraforming planets to suit their needs, whether out of kindness and foresight, or the mad machinations of gods gone crazy with power, is not yet known. They were instrumental in the creation of thousands of beings, including the Aeldari, the ancestors to the orks, the Croc, the Slang, and the Jokairo, who will be created much later in our story to fight a dangerous foe to the Old Ones. Some of the Adeptus Mechanicus believe that Earth might have been one of the planets seeded by the Old Ones. There might be other Xenos out there created by the Old Ones, but they have yet to be discovered or revealed. Around the same time that the Old Ones were spreading their influence across the galaxy, in a far corner of said galaxy, under the radiation and intense solar winds of a scourging star, a humanoid species began to develop, billions of years before humanity evolved on Earth. Their lives were very short. Cancers and terrible illnesses ravaged their bodies, and as such, lived lives of constant loss. Their society grew to honor the dead, and saw their beastly flesh as no more than a hindrance, creating grand structures and tombs that exalted and honored their dead. As such, the citizens looked forward to the day that their suffering could end, and thus join their brethren in peaceful slumber. Somewhere down the line, the Necrontyr, driven by their desire to rid themselves of the curse of their sick flesh, pushed out into the stars, hopeful to find a means of ridding themselves of the lethal energy inside of their bodies, provided to them by their star. They possess not the ability to create warp gates, but have been able to create and perfect their stasis crypts, which they use to sleep during the long, slow trips inside of antimatter-powered torch ships. The Necrontyr used the material described only as living metal to coat their ships on the outside to better resist and repair any damage sustained in their millennia-long journey. The exact origins of this substance, necrodermis, as referred of today, are not known, as well as the methods in which it is extracted or created. Only their descendants, the necrons, know of this method and are the only ones that have taken full advantage of this material. Through this process, the Necrontyr spread out throughout the corner of the galaxy, and little by little began to carve out an empire of their own, adding hundreds of thousands of planets to their rule. Multiple dynasties formed, all under the leadership of the Triarchs, 3 monarchs who each controlled the daily running of their respective kingdoms. The Silent King was the de facto ruler of each dynasty and would convey his orders by the other 2, thus the reason for his name. Through their expansion, ultimately, they finally encountered the Old Ones. They were initially not hostile, but they regarded the Necrontyr with wariness. This is mere speculation, but many scholars believe that the Old Ones saw their worship of death as the complete antithesis of everything that they stood for, the advancement and celebration of life, and thus refused to share their technology with the Necrontyr. The ruling class, the Triarchs, were jealous of the technology and long life that the Old Ones were afforded, while theirs was short and miserable. This, coupled with their growing differences between dynasties, have made them fight against each other in long generational conflicts referred to as the Wars of Secession. Starrick, Silent King of his own dynasty, knew that if they did not band together, their empire would crumble and destroy itself from within. Thus, he declared war on the Old Ones and used the promise of immortality and riches to unite all of the warring dynasties under one common cause under his banner. And thus began the millennia-long battle referred to as the War in Heaven. It is safe to say that the Necrontyr entered a battle of which they were ill-prepared to win. Though they possess advanced technology as well, it paled in comparison to the technological superiority of the Old Ones. Time and time again, the Old Ones outmaneuvered them at every step of the war. Their ability to reposition troops, materials, and resources through their warp gates proved too much of a hindrance to the Necrontyr, who had yet to master warp travel. With every battle they lost, every ship that was destroyed, dynasties completely wiped, and millions upon millions of Necrontyr dead, they were forced back into the recesses of their original home among the irradiated stars and planets. At this point, the unity that the Necrontyr had began to dissolve once again at their encroaching, impending demise. Many of the ruling Triarchs were inclined to declare defeat and thus foster an uneasy peace with the Old Ones, while other dynasties reverted back to warring against each other to fight for the scraps of what they thought was a dying empire. At this point in time, the Necrontyr Empire was in such a state of disarray that the Old Ones could have easily destroyed the last vestiges of their empire had they been a bloodthirsty species. But the Old Ones were content in leaving them on the irradiated corner of the galaxy, thinking of them as no more of a minor nuisance. A grave mistake that would soon seal their doom. Left to nurse their wounds, the Necrontyr's hatred of other life forms only increased with each passing generation, feeding their search for anything that would turn the tide in their favor. And thus, after much search and experimentation, they became aware of the C'tan, cosmic entities of indescribable power, who were nothing more than forces of nature as old as the beginning of the universe, but who possessed no more intelligence than the need to feed their never-ending hunger. How such a connection was established is unknown to anyone except for the necrons themselves. But some scholars believe that the unbridled hatred that the Necrontyr possessed acted as a beacon that these creatures could not ignore. To incur the favor of these beings, they forged physical shells out of their living metal necrodermis, so that the C'tan may inhabit them. As the C'tan compressed their incorporeal forms into these physical vessels, they gained consciousness and became keenly aware of the new pleasures that were made possible because of their physical vessel. One of these new vessels was given the name of Ran, meaning messenger, and was giving audience to the Silent King Sarek. Unbeknownst to them, and its origins is clearly contested, the other C'tan entities that came into being were wary of him and called him the Deceiver. When Ran obtained audience before the Triarchs, he told them of their war against the Old Ones, and how they had lost against their technological superiority as well. How they had hidden themselves away, hoping to find allies in the future to retake their war against them. Whether truth or not, none can deny the sway that his words had over the Triarch and Sarek himself, who was looking for a way to unify his people under one banner once more. According to some of the archives recovered from the Necron tombs, it was Ran himself who offered the knowledge of a biotransference process that would grant them immortal bodies made of the same material they used to create the C'tan's bodies, necrodermis, which would rid them of their ailing, sickly bodies in exchange for immortal ones. He insisted it was a gift, a boon to be bestowed on them, to become valuable allies in their coming fight against their common enemy. It took many solar months and debates between the Triarchs and the nobles. The last dissenting voice was of Obrakan, the Diviner, a powerful chronomancer able to look into the very flow of time itself, forwards or backwards. He foresaw that this deal would bring them a new renaissance of glory, but at the price of the Necrontyr's very souls. His words completely disregarded, and thus the Triarchs agreed to the C'tan's proposals, forever dooming their species. What happened to the Necrontyr and their newly found allies? This we will speak on in detail on the next bit as we tackle the Second War of Heaven and its consequences. And as always, thanks for watching, like, and subscribe.